Hey there, I'm Julie, and this is the Married to Addiction podcast. If you're here, then you're probably what I call my secret sister. We're in a situation we never asked to be in and fighting a battle we never wanted to fight. We're faith-filled women who are married to an alcoholic, and it affects every inch of our lives. If that sounds like you, then this is a safe place for you to land. Married to Addiction is a faith-based podcast where I help you find the tools and strength you need to navigate your husband's addiction without losing yourself in the process. So please subscribe and tune in as often as you can, because your husband's recovery is important, but so is yours. If you've been listening to this podcast for any length of time, I'm sure that you have heard me mention the Secret Sister Circle, which is my group coaching program for Christian wives of alcoholics. Today, I wanted to let you know that there have actually been quite a few updates and new things added to the SSC since the last time you probably checked it out. So one of the things I wanted to make sure you knew about was now we have in there what's called targeted roadmaps. These roadmaps are basically a super fast line to get you the answers that you need and the help that you need for a lot of really difficult situations that we come up against. So if you are feeling super overwhelmed or immobilized by your circumstances, you need clear direction and you need it now. You don't have time to sift through a lot of information. So these are focused, easy to follow guides that walk you step by step through some of the most difficult situations that you face. So no guessing, no searching, just straightforward guidance that helps you get some answers and breathe easier a lot more quickly. Now, of course, you also do have access when you join the SSC to the entire SSC library, which contains dozens of different lessons and tools and worksheets and all types of things to help you navigate pretty much any situation that you could come up against. But I did want to make sure that you knew that there are new targeted roadmaps available for you as well. So a few of the ones that are ready in there right now cover things like boundaries, communicating with your husband, reducing the chaos in your home. There's one about your husband's addiction. There's one about your husband's recovery. There's one about navigating the future. That can be a really tough one for us, right? There's one about feeling triggered, pulling yourself out of a spiral. There's more coming as well. So these are going to be a place that you can go when you need clear guidance really fast to get you through what you're going through in the moment. So if you have not yet, or even if you have before, but have not within the last couple of weeks, I would like for you to go check out the Secret Sister Circle page on my website. So just go to marriedtoaddiction.com. You will see a drop down at the top that says programs, and you'll just click on Secret Sisters Coaching from there. I hope you decide to join us there. Hello, and welcome into episode 109 of the Married to Addiction podcast. Today's episode is called Loving Him Without Losing Yourself, what that looks like day to day. When my husband was deep in addiction, I remember feeling absolutely desperate to help him. And sometimes thinking to myself, I need to figure out how to love him enough to get him through this. Of course, I would vacillate back and forth between that feeling and just being really angry. But when I did tap into the weight of his suffering and how I felt like that felt for him, I would just be bowled over by the wave of sorrow that I felt and the overwhelming need to help him however I could. It is so easy to get caught up in this, trying to fix or save our spouses, especially when addiction is involved, because we know that they're really struggling. And of course, we're struggling too because of it, right? The line between trying to love them through that and losing ourselves can get really blurry because we tend to spiral into codependency because of this strong desire to fix them or help them. And we don't realize it when we're in it, but what is happening simultaneously with that is we are completely neglecting ourselves. But here's the thing. Loving someone, especially when they're struggling, does not mean you need to lose your identity, your peace, your sense of worth, etc. Love is often equated with sacrifice. We think of it like that sometimes, but it's really important to distinguish between sacrificial love and self-sabotage. When we think about loving our spouse, especially in the context of addiction, we often feel the pressure to give and help, sometimes until we're running on empty, right? Sacrificing your own mental health, physical health, or spiritual well being for someone else is not the kind of love that God intended us to give. Now, I know you've heard the saying, you can't pour from an empty cup. And of course, that applies here too. So, loving your spouse doesn't mean losing yourself in the process. And I know you've heard me say that before, but it's true. It's so important because your needs matter, even now, especially now. And you deserve care, especially as you're walking this heartbreaking journey as a wife of an alcoholic. And that's kind of the ironic thing because the very time that we need extra care is the time that we tend to neglect ourselves because we're so fixated on our husband's addiction. So it's no wonder that we, as wives of alcoholics, end up feeling so depleted. Can you relate to that? I sure felt depleted when I was going through this with my husband. But how do we do this on a day-to-day basis? Like, what does this look like? How can you love your husband through this while maintaining your own self-care? So not spiraling into codependency, completely neglecting your own needs, etc. Today, I want to give you some practical steps to walk this out in your life. So the first way is to set healthy boundaries. And you are probably not surprised to hear boundaries pop up in another episode. We talk about this a lot. In fact, we talked about micro boundaries in the last episode. But I really encourage you to dive into the concept of boundaries even deeper than that. Micro boundaries is a great place to start, but really having a good foundation of healthy, effective boundaries with your alcoholic husband is hugely important. Setting boundaries is one of the most loving things you can do for yourself and your spouse. So it's like a 1-2 deal here. Setting boundaries is good for you, and setting boundaries ultimately is good for them, whether it feels like it at the time, whether they think so at the time. Remember that boundaries and having them is not about controlling their behavior. It's about protecting your emotional health and creating a safe emotional space for you. Boundaries are essentially a sign of respect, having respect for yourself and caring for yourself. So here's a couple of things to think about that can help you begin to set boundaries without feeling guilty. So even if it's like a micro boundary, or even if you are diving deeper into boundaries and you have a few that you know you need in your life, how do you do that without feeling guilty about, I remember thinking things like, well, it's just going to make it harder for him and things like that. Those are the type of thoughts that can pop up sometimes. So the first is you want to protect your time and space. So if your spouse's drinking is triggering or stressful for you, you need to know that it is okay to carve out time for yourself. So whether that's taking a walk, going to spend some time with a friend, simply just having some quiet moments at home when you're in a separate area of the house, things like that. Time away like that can really help you recharge. So you should not ever feel guilty about that. The second thing is to set some clear expectations. So you can love your spouse while being clear about what behaviors you can and cannot tolerate. So as we talked about last time, this does not always need to be announced. Setting clear expectations so that you don't feel guilty about having boundaries can be something that you just do for yourself and in your own mind. But sometimes if you feel like they do need to be communicated, you could say something very clear and simple, like, I can be here for you when you're sober, but I can't engage with you when you're intoxicated if, things start getting ramped up or whatever the case. So having those clear expectations for yourself and expressing those to your husband if needed can really help you have boundaries without feeling guilty. The third thing is you want to make sure that if you do communicate boundaries and you do need to have a conversation around that you do it with kindness, but firmness. So if you are going to express a boundary, you want to make sure that you are thinking about the fact that this isn't about being demanding. A boundary is not control. A boundary is not an ultimatum, etc. Boundaries are simply the way that you protect your emotional health. And remember, again, You don't always need to verbalize that, because boundaries are for you and about how you intend to respond in a certain situation. So that doesn't always need to be shared. But if you do feel the need, make sure that you're doing it with kindness and with firmness and succinctly as possible. If you need more help with understanding and setting boundaries as the wife of an alcoholic, as I talked about in the last episode too, I do encourage you to check out the Boundaries mini course on my site, marriedtoaddiction.com, written specifically for Christian wives of alcoholics. Very easy to go through, bite-sized pieces. You can move through it on demand whenever is easy for you, and it'll walk you through step by step on setting up some healthy, effective boundaries in your own situation. Now, boundaries out of the way, let's talk about another way that you can love your spouse through this without losing yourself. So a second way to do that is you want to make sure that you are taking time regularly to replenish your mind and spirit. Loving your spouse through a difficult situation like addiction requires spiritual strength. However, a lot of times we feel really isolated and we feel spiritually weak because maybe we keep praying about our situation and nothing seems to be changing, or maybe we just feel really distant from God. So at the time when you really feel like you need extra spiritual strength, you may feel like you actually have less spiritual strength. So the first thing that I want to remind you is that you are never alone in this journey. God is with you even when it doesn't feel like it, and He can always offer you that peace that surpasses all understanding. It's yours for the asking. Here are a few extra ways that you can also replenish your spirit. The first thing is to start your day with prayer. If you're like me, when you wake up in the morning and your first thought is, oh my gosh, this is going to be another horrible day. I wonder when he's going to start drinking. I wonder what issues are going to happen today. I can't believe we're still here. I can't believe we're still dealing with this. I'm so tired of this. What am I going to do? What about my kids? Should I leave? That whole thing used to start in my head the second my brain was awake. It might take some intentional thought to switch that off and to start your day with prayer instead. So you might have to tell yourself, okay, I'm going to shut those thoughts down, the ones I was just describing. Let me take a minute in prayer, even if it's just for a couple of minutes. Starting your day in prayer with the Lord can help you center your thoughts and set your intention for the day. Praying for strength, patience, and wisdom as you navigate the challenges ahead. Praying for peace throughout whatever the day will bring. Just starting your day with even a short prayer can really be so very powerful. The second thing that you can do to replenish your spirit daily is keeping a verse or two that speaks to your heart close by. So maybe Google a verse that you really find soothing and go to images and grab a screen cap of that and have it on your wallpaper on your phone, or put it in the notes on your phone, or keep it in the pictures on your phone. Maybe write down this verse that makes you feel better and put it on the mirror in your bathroom, on the dashboard in your car, on your computer screen at work. Anything that can speak to your heart throughout the day. Verses like Philippians 4, 6, and 7 that says, do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation, by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your requests to God. And the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus. Or maybe Isaiah 41:10, which says, so do not fear, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you and help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand. Verses like that can be reminders that God is your refuge and strength, no matter what happens and no matter what is going on in your life. The third way that you can replenish your spirit on a regular basis is to make sure that you have community and support. Even when things feel isolating, find ways to stay connected to others who truly understand what you're going through. That is so important. just feeling seen, just feeling heard, just feeling like, oh my gosh, I'm not the only person who's dealing with that. I mean, I wish I had a dollar for every time somebody came into my Secret Sister circle and, posted in the private group and said, oh my gosh, like I thought I was the only one who was dealing with that. Like it is such a relief to be around other people who really get it, who really understand what I'm going through. So I encourage you to please find a support group or an online program with a community like the Secret Sister Circle where you can share your feelings without judgment. That is so, so vitally important. If you would like to explore more about the Secret Sister Circle, you can also find that on my website, marriedtoaddiction.com. Lastly, loving your husband through something as difficult as addiction without losing yourself in the process requires an important mindset shift. This one was probably the hardest one for me because the whole time that this was happening in my life, all I was thinking was, I need him to get better. I need him to heal from this. I need him to stop drinking. I need him to change. I need him to get sober. I need him to do it. When I finally realized that that was a battle in futility, and that the only thing that I could change was me. And not only that the only thing that I could change was me, but how drastically changing me could change everything else. That is really when everything just started pivoting. And for me, I'm sure you've heard me say before, that happened way, way late in the game for me, way late in the game. I had been trapped in misery and hopelessness and sorrow and desperation for years before I got to that place. And that is why I do what I do now, sitting on this podcast talking to you, because my whole goal with Married to Addiction is I do not want women to stay stuck as long as I did, because it is a horrible place to be. It is super important to remember and accept that your healing matters. And if you don't take time to heal, you are just going to continue to find yourself drained, disconnected, hopeless, just a shell of your former self, lost, etc. You need to be caring for your heart, your mind, your soul, yourself. So what are some ways that you can keep your healing a priority? The first is just to recognize the importance of it. Like I said, your journey of healing is as important as your spouse's, if not more important. Don't wait for his recovery. You need to start prioritizing yourself now. You can change things for you now. You can take steps each day that move you closer to peace, that move you closer to clarity, that move you closer to healing and freedom from the spiral that you're in constantly. Whether that's through taking better care of yourself, physically, maybe you start with that. Maybe you go to therapy. Maybe you start a journal. We talked about the guided journal that I offer too for free. We talked about that a couple episodes ago. Maybe you start with something like that, also available on my website. Maybe you do decide to join the Secret Sister Circle so you can get some day-to-day encouragement, support, direction, guidance, actionable steps. Whatever it is, you have got to understand that your journey of healing needs to start now. You can't wait for him. How long is that going to take? In some of our cases, unfortunately, that day never comes. You can't wait, sister. You can't wait. Please don't wait. Get some help for yourself somehow, somewhere, starting today. And when you start doing that, even if it's just a small thing for now, another way to make sure that your healing stays a priority for you is to celebrate it. Celebrate your small wins. So progress doesn't always need to look like huge changes. Celebrate a small victory. When you've set a micro boundary, celebrate that. When you've had a peaceful moment and you didn't react or respond in the way that you normally would, and you're thinking to yourself, wow, We would normally be in a huge, big knockdown drag out right now. The kids would be hiding in their rooms because there's yelling, and I would be crying, and he would be, he would leave and have, gone off to the bar because he's mad, like all of that. When you have a moment where you handle things differently and that doesn't happen, celebrate that. When you've made time to do something for you, celebrate that. This helps you keep healing a priority because you realize the importance of it every time you do something small, because these small wins add up over time. And after a week, a month, 6 months, 1 year, you look back and you think, oh man, this feels so much better. Again, something I hear all the time from my Secret Sister Circle members. This feels so much better. Of course, if you need some concrete, practical ways to stay focused on your healing, I do encourage you to check out the offerings on my website. Now, I do have a lot of things that are offered for free. There's, of course, some paid options, and I recently added a tab on there that says which program, or that's called which program or offering is right for me. So there's a whole page now on the website, marriedtoaddiction.com, to help you decide what kind of help would be best for you right now. Because sometimes you might look and you're like, well, there's a 30-day program, there's a Secret Sister Circle. Like, I'm not really sure. Do I need something just about boundaries? Like, there's a few different things there. And I think sometimes having a few different options is too overwhelming. So I hope that this really makes it clear for you. So you just go to marriedtoaddiction.com and you click on the programs and offerings drop down, and you will see that tab now that says which program or offering is right for me to help you decide. As you go on about your day-to-day, I want you to remember the fact that loving your spouse does not mean sacrificing your own well-being. And if you have been finding yourself doing that, please think about and implement some of the things that we've talked about today, because you are worthy of peace, love, and care right now. Not when he gets sober, right now. You need that right now. Your kids, if you have them, need that from you right now. You deserve that right now. So keep taking steps forward, even if they're small. Pray about your next step, and then lean into whatever God shows you to do next, and trust that He is guiding you through every moment. You are not alone in this journey. As always, thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you next time. Quick question for you before I let you go today. Have you been to the Married to Addiction website? If you haven't, I would love if you would go pay it a visit. It's just marriedtoaddiction.com. And over there, you can see just a lot of different information about my podcast. There is a blog on there. There's some free resources for you. And there's also a few ways that you can actually get some help if you need a little more help and direction and support as you travel this difficult path with your addicted husband. So if you haven't yet, please go visit marriedtoaddiction.com. Thanks so much.